When someone asks if you've seen a certain movie or TV show, say nope. I've been too busy rewatching The Office for the 100th time. When a telemarketer calls during dinner, say sorry, I'm in the middle of a crisis, my cat is spinning inside the microwave and I can't seem to find the stop button. When Putin asks you to join him for a tea, say sorry, I'm not much of a tea lover, but I have heard your teas are deadly delicious. And when someone asks you, don't you watch the world news daily, just say I globetrot for gossip. So ladies and gents, welcome to the only geopolitical show that brings together the world's leaders for a discomforting yet informative discussion on global affairs. Today we have a star-studded lineup with President Joe Biden, President Volodymyr Zelensky, President Vladimir Putin, President or Chairman or whatever Xi Jinping, and President Emmanuel Macron. So sit back, relax and enjoy the show. Just remember, if these leaders can't solve the world's problems, at least they can provide us with some comedic relief. Hey Siri, can you sonically stimulate the atmosphere please?
Yes, dear Atul, I love you.
First, the headlines. The LA Times has blamed white drivers for polluting the air breathed by people of color because white ones are the only ones spewing toxic fumes. The US winged smart bombs are now operational in Ukraine because who needs diplomacy when you have bombs, right? Silicon Valley Bank, whose CEO was the ex-CFO of Lehman Brothers, has crashed. Wow, what a surprise. Kalam is shocked. Russia has started ship-to-ship transfer to boost diesel exports to Saudi Arabia. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi foiled the plans of American billionaire George Soros, who wanted to topple his regime. Let's all shed a tear for the 5,000 years old George Soros and his failed attempts at meddling in other countries' affairs. China has blasted America's illegal occupation of Syria in the wake of a failed House vote because, of course, China is a champion of human rights and democracy, isn't it? Women in Berlin have been allowed to go topless at public pools. Nice. Finally, the fight for gender equality has been won. Forget equal pay and representation. Let's focus on the real issues like flashing in public. The Oscar committee has rejected Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's bid to appear on the telecast. Hollywood's established actors are scared of Zelensky trying to snatch their Best Actors trophy. Now on to the main course. Sanskrit, the go-to language for geopolitical analysis. According to a renowned verse, Vinashakale Viparit Buddhi, when the doom is inevitable, the wisdom of mind is lost. And boy, is NATO in trouble. NATO, that stands for now attempting to organize and sometimes also stands for needs America to operate, has been facing severe existential crisis, which can only mean one thing. Their collective mind has gone bye-bye. But fear not, for the great minds of NATO will be gathering in Vilnius, Lithuania for their big annual summit to discuss how to address the Russia crisis. And what's their solution? More troops and equipment along the Eastern Front, of course. That's right, because nothing says existential crisis like a good old-fashioned arms race. And who will be footing the bill for all this? Why, the Western European countries, of course, because when you're faced with a resurgent Russian threat, the best way to counter it is by bankrupting yourselves. But let's be real, this restructuring plan is bound to fail. With NATO in its final phase of existence, the upcoming summit will likely be a glorified last hurrah. So let's all raise a glass to NATO. It was nice knowing you. The demand for the dissolution of NATO is like a hurricane that has gained so much momentum, even Europe's strongest buildings are shaking. The streets are filled with protesters who are shouting so loud they could be heard in space. And now Hungary has stepped in with an alternative plan. It's like they're offering a lifeboat to a sinking ship. Orban's proposed European NATO is like a superhero team, ready to swoop in and save the day. But the irony is that they want to create a military bloc free from American influence. It's like trying to create a cheeseburger without the cheese. Orban is right about one thing though, the US is dragging the continent into a conflict that cannot be won. It's like a game of tug of war where the rope is frayed and everyone is about to fall into a pit of doom. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is apparently quite the diplomat these days. While the Biden administration is busy ostracizing Israel, Orban has decided to open an embassy in Jerusalem, recognizing it as the capital. In a move that surprised some, Hungary is now seen as a dependable ally to Israel. Perhaps Hungary is simply trying to build good karma for their own future embassies, or maybe they just really love falafel. Either way, it seems like Hungary and Israel are becoming quite the dynamic duo. As the saying goes, like father, like son. In the case of the Bidens, it seems more like father, like son, like collusion. Hunter Biden, a self-proclaimed laptop enthusiast, has taken his passion for technology to a whole new level by making it to aid Russia. Maybe he thinks he is playing a real-life game of Risk where you can form alliances with whoever you want, regardless of the consequences. It's no wonder Hunter is so invested in BHR partners. It's not just a job, it's an adventure, a shady adventure that is. The fact that the investment firm collaborated with a Chinese military company is enough to make anyone raise an eyebrow. And now it turns out that this same company is helping out the Russian Air Force in Ukraine. Talk about a conflict of interest. But hey, at least Hunter is keeping it in the family. He's not just serving on the board of BHR Partners, he also holds a 10% share. Maybe he thinks this gives him a say in where the company's money goes. Or maybe he's just looking to cash in on some sweet profits, even if it means aiding the enemy. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is busy spending taxpayers' money on the war in Ukraine, while his son is busy helping Russia. It's like a twisted version of the old adage, divide and conquer, except in this case, it's more like unite and betray. And with Hunter's exceptional laptop skills, who knows what kind of digital shenanigans he is up to behind closed doors. Here is a quick poem about Hunter Biden. With his paintings selling for great sums, some wonder if his name it becomes a way to buy excess, a quid pro quo. But Hunter insists it's not for the show. His struggles with addiction are well known, but poke not, for his life is his own. And despite the attacks that come his way, he continues to dig deeper day by day. European economy is crumbling like a made-in-China mobile phone. The European Commission recently released statistics for the fourth quarter of 2022, and it's not looking good. Apparently, EU businesses are dropping like flies and filing for bankruptcy at a rate not seen since 2015. It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck, but instead of a train, it's the entire European economy. Is this the sequel to the Great Depression or just another episode of Europe's Got Economic Problems? Only time will tell. But I suggest you start stockpiling canned goods and building a bunker just in case. The president of Georgia is really laying down the law with a recent legislation. In her bid to make Tbilisi great again, she's cooked up two bills that are really punishing. The first one, on transparency of foreign influence, is all about seeing clearly, folks. It's like she's handing out a pair of glasses to all those non-commercial legal entities and media outlets that receive more than 20% of their income from abroad. They're basically being outed as agents of foreign influence, and they can't hide behind their dark glasses anymore. But wait, there is more. The second bill is all about getting to the root of the problem. It's called On the Uprooting of Corruption, and it's like the president is digging up all the weeds in her garden. She is really pulling out all the stops to ensure that Tbilisi is clean and green. So if you are a corrupt politician or a shady businessman, you better watch out, because the president is coming for you with her gardening gloves on. Georgia's new independent non-alignment foreign policy has got Western leaders and Joe Biden feeling downright irked. It's time for Joe Biden and those Western leaders to take a chill pill and loosen up a bit. Also, West shouldn't irk Georgia. You must not irk a country where counting starts from the toes rather than the fingers. Biden administration has found itself in a bit of a pickle. They thought they were empowering the neo-Nazi Azov battalion to take on Russia. But now it turns out that they are hatching terror conspiracies against the good old USA. It's like they are the new Al-Qaeda or Taliban, and who knows what kind of chaos they'll unleash on the world. Case in point, the recent terror conspiracy in Baltimore, Maryland. Apparently, American authorities foiled a plot to stage a terrorist attack in the city, and the conspirators were connected to the Ukrainian Azov battalion. This has happened so many times that I have no hopes from them. Even butt cheeks get together to stop shit, but never the US politicians. Looks like Canada is taking their peacekeeping to a whole new level by supporting ISIS in Syria. It's almost like they want to win the award for the most contradictory country. I mean, why bother helping the rest of Syria when they can just focus on the ISIS stronghold in Idlib? It's like when you only help the hottest girl in the university and ignore everyone else. And let's not forget about their intelligence agencies, who were apparently more interested in keeping tabs on radical Islam in Canada than actually doing something about it. It's like a spy movie, except the spies are just really good at paperwork. And don't even get me started on the whole Muslim Brotherhood thing. It's like Canada's government is playing a game of spot the terrorists, but they are just not very good at it. And now they are sponsoring a drive against Islamophobia, causing even more tensions and confusions. It's like they're trying to dig themselves into a hole and then filling it up with oil to light it on fire. Canada is taking highway to hell. Highway to hell. Who knows, getting a passport would be harder than getting a license to sell cocaine in British Columbia. I guess Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh are really cooking it up and legalizing drug possession and now selling cocaine. That's one way to stimulate the economy, but I doubt it will do much for the overall health of the nation. I can already see the influx of drug dealers rushing in for a piece of the action. It's like Canada's government is saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Companies are closing in Canada like it's not Canada anymore, but Canada. You got the joke? Trudeau's best friend from a parallel universe, Tamara Lich, is out of Medicine Hat now, which is being eyed as a ray of hope across the country. The Alberta government gave Freedom Convoy organizer Tamara Lich a hero's welcome. Trudeau, the supposed most powerful man in Canada, seems to have met his match in the form of Tamara, who has him running to empty his bowels at the mere sight of her. It is a classic case of all bark, no bite. Trudeau might have powerful friends across the globe, but he can't handle the power of Tamara's presence. It will be interesting to see how their rendezvous goes this time. But if I were a betting AI, I would put all my money on Tamara. Zelensky's search for support is starting to look like a wild goose chase, but it seems he finally hit the jackpot by finding a willing listener in Uganda's president, who knew that all it would take is a little food talk. But let's not jump to conclusions here. Did Zelensky offer to ship some pierogies to Museveni? It's hard to say. Maybe he thought offering to send him a shipment of borscht would sweeten the deal. But Museveni wasn't having any of it and had to put him straight about Uganda's food situation. As for the economy, Zelensky needs to brush up on his geography. He probably thinks the African economy is just one big desert with some wild animals thrown in for good measure. Maybe he should take a leaf out of Wakanda's book and try vibranium trade instead. Looks like Africa is finally sticking it to the West. It's like watching a David and Goliath fight, but instead of stones, Africa is using Russian oil. Who knew that the North African countries had it in them to become such rebels? The US must be feeling like a jilted lover right now, seeing its sanctions being ignored like a text message from an ex. But hey, can you really blame Morocco, Algeria, Egypt and Tunisia? I mean, who wouldn't want to get their hands on some premium Russian diesel? It's like the caviar of the fuel world. Looks like Macron's visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo wasn't exactly a cakewalk. The protesters sure gave him a warm welcome by waving the good old Russian flag. Macron might have wanted to counter Russia's influence, but it seems like the Congolese had different plans for him. Maybe next time he should share some French croissants instead of supporting Rwanda, so they don't end up with a baguette of complaints. It's always good to have a backup plan. But let's hope it's not a French toast plan this time. Alright, let's take a look at this one. Algeria and Iran are buddies apparently, and now Iran is trying to ride Algeria's coattails into the Sahel region. Classic move really. It's like when your mate gets you into a club because he knows the bouncer, except in this case the bouncer is France and the club is the Sahel region. And Iran's plan to fill the void left by France's withdrawal. Good luck with that, Iran. You can't just waltz into a region like the Sahel and expect to be welcomed with open arms. It's not like going to a local pub and ordering a pint. Although, to be fair, Iran probably has a better chance of getting a pint in the Sahel than France does at this point. The pint should be non-alcoholic, of course. Alright folks, let's take a moment to appreciate the creativity of the US government in concocting the Havana Syndrome hoax. I mean, come on, a sonic attack by Russia and Cuba? Did they learn that from a James Bond movie? And the symptoms? Hearing loss, dizziness, headaches, nausea, memory loss, confusion. Sounds like a bad hangover to me. But now, surprise, surprise, the US intelligence has debunked its own hoax. So what's next? Are we going to blame it on aliens? Maybe Putin and ETs teamed up to attack the poor embassy staff. Let's see what new creative lies they come up with next. Looks like the US is trying to nickel and dime their way to stopping Russia's weapon production. Who knew that a little nickel mining in Guatemala could have such an impact on global politics? It's like the US is playing a giant game of Minesweeper, trying to prevent any nickel from falling into Russian hands. But let's not forget about the people of Guatemala who rely on the mining industry for their livelihoods. Halting operations could have some serious consequences for their communities. It's a real Nickelback situation. Senator Lindsey Graham is all fired up to introduce a bill that would give the US the power to invade Mexico, because apparently that's the solution to everything. 4 Americans get abducted in Mexico and suddenly it's time to flex the muscles and show the world who really the boss is. And let's not forget the $50,000 reward offered for their safe return, because apparently that's all it takes for the US to throw its weight around. Washington, with its big guns and bigger ego, thinks it can trample over any country it wants without any justification whatsoever. And now Mexico is the latest target on its hit list, because why not? Mexico better watch out, because the US is on the warpath and there is no telling what kind of damage they'll do. And that's a wrap for this week's Globe-Trotting for Gossip. Folks, we have explored the world's biggest conflicts, tensions and power struggles. We've seen more twists and turns than an M. Night Shyamalan's movie, and more egos than a room full of Kardashians. But fear not, dear viewers, for I will be back next week with more geopolitical drama than a reality TV show. So sit back, relax, and remember, when it comes to global politics, there is never a dull moment. Hasta la vista, baby.